We're live. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, good morning. This is Natural Resources and Energy. It is Tuesday, February 24th. And we are starting with a new draft of S223. Hopefully up for a vote here this morning. So, welcome. That was so far. Yeah, that's enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll just walk through the changes and
Sure.
see where we're.
And I'll overview anything that hasn't changed as well.
Okay,
If that's okay.
yeah, that's great.
This is Michael Gray with Left Side of Council. Last week, you heard some testimony from interested parties about amending the substance of 223, and that's what this draft does. First change is in the creation of the group, the Water Quality Lake Classification and Anti-Degradation Study Group. And it's going to do all of the things. Its purpose is to do what you tell it to do in the powers and duties, which is reviewing existing classified waters of the state and Canada waters with water quality data, supporting reclassifications, assessment of anti-degradation requirements, examination of the regulatory framework for Class A waters, an examination of the adequacy of the current water classification system for lakes and ponds. That's a summary of what you actually tell them to do in subsection C. So that is their authority and their power. And then based on their evaluations, they recommend to you legislative or policy changes to strengthen environmental protection, provide regulatory certainty, we support public uses of state waters. There are 11 persons on the work group. 2 House, 2 Senate, Secretary of Natural Resources or designated EPC water quality scientists, 2 representatives of business that interact with water quality permitting, 2 persons representing nonprofit environmental advocacy group, and 1 person from the Federation of Lakes and Ponds. Then you get to that specific list of what their powers and duties are. First, they're going to develop an inventory of waters of the state with the existing classifications, including those counted high quality waters that could meet or exceed the minimum criteria for reclassification. Then page 3, line 3 and 4, this is a change that you discussed last week. Assess the state's obligation under the Federal Clean Water Act with respect to adoption of an anti-degradation rule. You wanted to freeze that reference to the Clean Water Act as it was enacted as of January 1, 2026. So if it is changed significantly, you are still referencing those sections 1251 to 1388 and 33 USC. And what are you going to do with that? You're going to look at the adoption of an anti-degradation rule to implement the state's anti-degradation policy, including an evaluation of what the state and federal requirements are for that, and whether there are practical or legal barriers for full compliance. Then page 3, lines 9 and 13, you're going to identify and evaluate the statutory and regulatory framework, rules, policies, and procedures governing Class A waters, including whether modifications are needed to facilitate the reclassification of available water, adequate protection support designated and existing wide regulatory certain activities of Class A water. You have a new subdivision, not really new, it's just a rewording to evaluate whether the existing water classification in the state related statutory and regulatory frameworks provides regulatory certainty and adequately addresses current consistent threats for the water quality and ecological integrity of the state's lakes and ponds.
Can I
Yes, sir.
ask a question? I believe you wanted them switched. That you wanted the potential threats first and regulatory certainty second.
That's exactly what that was, integrity first.
Oh, okay. I knew it was some different.
So can I just related statutory and regulatory frameworks provide ecological integrity? Is that what you're
Protect ecological integrity.
ecological integrity, provide regulatory certainty.
Well, I think, and then I put second, but I can try to put in the potential threats and then I can towards some sort of thing.
Okay. I'm sorry. And then the rest of it is largely, the administrative requirements for work groups and study committees. Has the assistance of A&R and Ledge Council. You changed the date for the report to December 15th, 2026. The first meeting's called by the Secretary of Natural Resources, but at the first meeting, there's going to be a chair elected from one of the 4 legislators. Study group ceases to exist on February 15th, 2027. And both you and the members of the public that are not otherwise compensated get compensation for 8 meetings. And then the act takes effect on passage. First meeting is by August 1st, 2026.
I'm okay with this language pending this change of order. Any other thoughts from the committee?
It's good.
If you want, you can vote contingent on that change.
I am okay with that. I know sometimes it's good to see the language. How long would you say it would take you to swap that out?
10, 15 minutes tops. I can pull
What
out the
if, are
file.
you busy? Are you
No, I'm good.
Two other-
Stick around for the next testimony, but you can all tell me what that has to say. So,
Okay,
all right.
okay, so maybe if we can have you back whenever whenever you're ready, and we'll come back perhaps between Commissioner Hughes, Brett Hughes and Joan Goldstein. We'll see if we can.
I don't like to vote on
I
unless I see it.
Yeah, I think that is fair. So we'll hold off on that vote for now. Okay. Hi, Commissioner, are you ready? Yes. Okay, so we're gonna switch topics to S213. Currently labeled as relating to smart meters, but I think the name may be changed. Yeah.
Okay. Still formerly known as smart meters.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, thank you.
Hello. I'm really fun.
Yeah, please. Here.
Oh, there it is. Great, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, for sure. Thank you for being here. And I know you have, oh, sorry, we're on S213 now, which is about,
Good route.
oh.
I don't.
We don't have an introduction. It's still 1.1.
Michael had questions, so he was ready
So
to
wait,
wrap
I
up.
have this one, is that full road on?
Yeah.
Yes. I believe it's 1.1.
Okay, so there's another one.
So that's the most recent one, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Commissioner has some suggestions.
Yes.
For us, so I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Thank you. So for the record, I am Denise Riley Hughes. I'm the secretary for the Agency of Digital Services. I'm also the state's chief information officer. And I had the pleasure of having a couple of conversations and was invited to testify specifically to the cybersecurity language, but also the cybersecurity governance concepts in general. And so I provided a memo to committee members and to Madam Chair. And I'm assuming that it's not. Oh, it's
Not posted yet.
Oh, so.
Because I didn't know what. Yeah.
One more.
I will post it. Now.
Okay.
1.1.
Perfect. And I wanted to provide the memo just as a brief explanation as far as what the changes are that were proposed under ADS. I want to talk a little bit about the Cyber Advisory Council and the work that it's done over the last few years and the importance of this council when it comes to statewide cyber preparedness for critical infrastructure. And I would be happy to start in any place.
I think it might make some sense to start too broadly, about cybersecurity, how that is working, and then we can narrow down to your suggested language. Does that sound?
Gotcha.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go really, really high level and talk about the Cyber Advisory Council specifically. And this was a council that was put into law a few years ago. And it was with the focus of ensuring a heightened level of cyber preparedness for critical infrastructure sectors across the state. So we've got a lot of representation and have issued a report each year. The very first year, we issued a report on the intent of what we would be doing, the membership that we had convened, and then we issued a survey across the state. And although we could have had thousands of respondents, we ended up having a couple hundred respondents participate, and we're able to share the varying degrees of both cybersecurity awareness and preparedness in each of their sectors. And it was done anonymously because the the council rather, is not there to be regulatory, it is there to be guidance and advisory based. So the council meets, at this point, we're meeting every other month because we've broken up into subcommittees. And ironically enough, yesterday, the water sector the subcommittee met and did bring up this topic and talked about cybersecurity overall. Now, when we look at cybersecurity in state government, the Agency of Digital Services provides a level of cybersecurity operations, response, and support to all of state government. And then when it comes to anything outside of state government, we find that our partners, the BIC or Homeland Security or FBI, they are our adjacent partners in support of each of those areas. We think of water treatment facilities, water distribution organizations, electric, fuel utilities, school districts would be part of that critical infrastructure sector too, hospitals, healthcare, and state government. So we are our own critical infrastructure sector. So when we look at whole of state, many times each of the sectors are supporting and providing support and services to the same residents and the same Vermonters. So having that level of consistency is really important. And when we look at cybersecurity in general, the philosophy is zero trust and assume breach. So we know that it's not a foolproof, there's nothing perfect. And the Attorney General's office has some strong cyber breach language around reporting, notifications, protections, consumer protection. And it is an evolving space overall. And so with the advancements of artificial intelligence and the changes that are happening within that area of technology, it is putting some more heightened awareness on cybersecurity as well, because it's all touching the same data. And when it comes to how organizations prepare, there's varying differences depending on what it is that they're supporting. So if we were to look specifically at the water sector, and before we get further into the details, I'm not sure if this committee has had the opportunity to meet with members of the water sector, but there are municipalities and users, owners, and it's not the word I'm looking for. That's amazing, that word just went. The people who run those facilities across the state. Operators, thank you so much. That was such an easy word that I would highly recommend to give them the opportunity to come in here and also share, because they have been working both with the council and among each other to create some of those best practices that is influencing other sectors, but also allowing a level of operations that is in support of residents and users of water.
They have been in, yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So when we talk about smart metering. One of the things that I wanted to focus on in the recommended language changes that we sent over is that concept of future proofing. Technology is advancing at a rapid rate. So if, let's just make some assumptions, if this bill passed through Senate, went to House, passed through, got approved, and went into law, say July 1st. By December, that language from a technology perspective would likely already be outdated. And so that's a high risk to being super specific in bill language when it comes to technology. But also when it comes to the advancements of cyber governance and cyber framework too. So we use NIST standards. We just recently updated language within the NIST standards. And so as those standards continue to improve, and if new standards come out, that changes the expectation and the requirements at a higher rate and at a faster rate than what law language can keep up with. And so one of the recommendations I had was to not create a distinction between wired and wireless because it would be irrelevant. Likely in a short frame of time, and allows you to keep that fundamental concept of a meter as a technology device itself. And so I know it seems a little messy in how the bill draft is, but it was basically a cross out and rewrite of the definitions.
And I saw it for just a second. June. Thank you for posting the bill, and Secretary Riley also sent, and I forwarded it to you over the weekend. This memo that she's referring to and her suggested amendments to the draft. And I'm wondering if we could post those so everybody else in the committee can see them.
Would you like a copy to the committee?
I don't know if people want paper copies or not, but
And I will apologize because my wonderful legislative support resource has been out sick. And so all that magic that usually happens did not.
It's okay. And I think our legislative council attorney had some questions for you, and unfortunately we kind of just sent him out of the room to do something else, but
If I take my time with talking to me.
yeah, maybe.
So that was the intent and purpose behind modifying and changing. So you had said advanced metering, I removed wireless, wired, meters or meters. I had an opportunity, so I live in a small town that services just over 500 residents with water. And you getting the opportunity to speak with Rick Chambers, who also ran the water operations for Springfield Town for a point in time, and he's no longer at Springfield, he's a town manager, but gave me some background around the longevity of these devices. And currently right now, I believe it is recommended to replace every 20 years. And most towns are well past that at this point. And so when you look at 20 years being for operational support, now you're looking at allowing these certain devices to make up for that. They anticipate with about 500 users that it's going to take them over 2 years to do that because it's everything outside of the house. And so that concept is going to be really important when we look at cybersecurity, data, and operations, is the metering devices sit outside of the home. And if there is anything with the plumbing or the wiring on the backside of the device forward into the home, the meter has nothing to do with that. So that would be on the homeowner, and that's likely why some of that multi-year effort timeframe is has been scheduled for that. The meter itself is built with technology that listens, and it doesn't listen at the data side, it actually listens for vibration. So it's listening for data flow. And these devices aren't touching the operating technology, the OT. They're touching the water flow. But it's tracking water flow on the outside of the home, not on the inside of the home. So that's a really important distinction when we start looking at cybersecurity, is that it's the cyber considerations of these devices, whether or not it's radio technology. I believe that there's even ways of putting radio towers up to be able to do more real-time monitoring, Bluetooth. There's different types of frequencies to use on that front side of the house. And when it picks up certain vibrations, it can identify leaks. And it can identify where those leaks are depending on where it's hearing the sounds on those smart meter devices. So that's what they care about. What it's not listening to is whether you flush that day and how many times that you did and whether or not you're using the water. And I think that's a really important distinction because the technology is simple. It's monitoring the water distribution in the pipes, and it's monitoring for sound in the pipes. Because of the high risk, especially of aging infrastructure, you'll be able to isolate and identify where it is without waiting for water flowing into a road or road degrading or something is the worst happening. And so that is, from a technology lens, that definitely explains, at least to us in ADS, where the technology is sourcing this information and data. When we say from a radio frequency standpoint, you can drive by a road, and because you have the receiver, you're on almost like a two-way radio, you can pick up the reader meet. And again, that's not on the inside of the house, it's on the outside. So it's all exterior to the water connection at the home. And it is looking at that number alone. And that number goes to the town office and it syncs up to a resident account. What it never does is it never touches water distribution. So it's not actually touching the operating system of the water treatment facility. And so that, I think, is a big distinction when we look at what we're trying to solve in putting cyber language into a permitting section of, because that's a high risk as well, is that what happens if they're 2 years delayed and they're rolling out that their permit renews, and now all of a sudden we put cybersecurity language around in conditions of authorizing permitting approvals for towns. And so that's an area where I can tell you we're not equipped to handle that in supporting A&R. And I know that they don't necessarily have those expertise to make those determinations, because going back to that zero trust and assumed breach is that what's our risk acceptance level in this space. And that's why it's really important that we look at the work that the Cyber Advisory Council is doing, because the cyber preparedness allows towns and municipalities who are delivering these types of services an opportunity to assess their preparedness and their readiness, which when they have infrastructure like this, that would be inclusive of their assessment. But not necessarily the permit allowance.
But you do have language suggestions.
I
to
do.
keep it sort of, as I said, on
Well,
the wall.
we had some really great conversations around, we'd like to, I know that this committee would like to not see this language removed, that you want to add cyber security as an intentional effort when you're talking about modern technology on critical infrastructure systems, and I can appreciate that. And so you will see my recommendations on page 5, starting on line 7, and this is where I am way over my skis on this one. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a CIO, I'm a technologist, but when I look at bills, thinking like a technologist, I look at the applicable use and how we can make this happen, kind of similar how we look at projects and solutioning projects and how do you apply the technology to the business intent. And so there is a section 1672, which is the authority of the Secretary of A&R that would allow us to focus on the work of the Cybersecurity Council, but allow whoever the secretary is at, at the time, but Secretary Moore now, in engaging the Cyber Advisory Council, which also has representation of that critical infrastructure sector, and focus around those best practices and also targets the relevant information around metering systems and customer data, so that the language now if you were to adopt this language, would focus on the integrity and security of customer information. It would focus on the advancements of technology, calling out metering specifically, but not limiting it to metering, because you could put devices in other places at some point in time. But it also puts an onus on the council to ensure that the state has a level of cyber preparedness in this space, and that the secretary has the authority to require the council to work with her partners. That's it.
Yes, good. So I don't know if this is what Michael's question was, but in the language, and I think I'm the only one who might be seeing it, maybe. But it says the secretary may allow the cybersecurity advisory council to issue non-binding guidance, et cetera, et cetera. Both Senator Watson and I worked on this, the creation of the cybersecurity advisory council, but I can't remember. I don't think the secretary has authority over that council.
I do.
You do,
but
but this is the secretary of A&R, I think.
So it would be applying under the sector. So as the secretary under ADS, which the council falls under,
Yeah.
I don't have authority across critical infrastructure sectors, nor should I. I do have authority in the work that the council is doing to support all of the critical infrastructure areas. And when I look at cybersecurity as a team sport,
Yeah.
this now puts language in there where another secretary who is responsible for one of the critical infrastructure sectors has to recognize the Cyber Advisory Council, but also understands where that cyber advisory and where that cyber guidance would need to come from. So may and allow could be not the right legal language to
Yeah.
use.
It might be request instead of allow, but may request a cyber security advisory council. Because allow is kind of a weird word in statute, but
I defer to the experts.
yeah, Michael might have other suggestions here. I don't want to speak for him because he didn't specifically tell me what his questions were, but that was one thing that popped up for me is you kind of always want to make sure the sort of lines of authority are clear in statute. And if you're the secretary that has oversight, it might be a little confusing for this council, but.
And I think it's important this would be the first time that we would see language in that we have visibility into an ADS, where it really enforces that cybersecurity team sport concept without unintentionally distributing the authority in the wrong places, so that we then don't move forward. But it also creates some onus on the Cyber Advisory Council in our regular reporting to start getting a little bit more specific in each one of the sectors around where there's some advancement or preparedness to avoid cyber response efforts to have to take place.
And then the other sector that. Hey, Michael, I was just asking a question about this language, 213. I'm not sure if it was the same question you had, but.
And actually, while we're paused, so it's because it's not on the website yet, is that right?
Which?
Oh, the suggested language.
Yes, I put the suggested language on the website, so I don't have a physical copy.
Oh, okay, that's,
I don't.
Is anybody else having trouble getting to the Vermont legislature website, is it just?
I'm on.
mine's.
You are?
Mine is actually, okay.
Okay, all right, okay,
I'm
I'm on paper, but.
okay, I can also forward this.
I think I'm gonna need something.
You don't have it, you're not able to look at it.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
I'm gonna just forward the.
Are you gonna forward it? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. But the language. Sorry, Michael, I don't wanna do this before you're ready, because then.
Michael, here's.
So fast.
Well, this isn't her, is this, oh yeah, it is.
So what is the question?
So in the suggested language, which is right. On the cybersecurity guidance. She was suggesting this language about the secretary may allow the cybersecurity advisory council, and that seemed odd to me.
So I rewrote it. I apologize.
I'm not the expert in legal language.
So it says upon the request of the secretary is defined as the Secretary of Natural Resources. The Cybersecurity Advisory Council shall develop non-binding guidance for public water systems regarding generally accepted cybersecurity practices, including information relevant to metering systems and customer data. The council may issue this guidance as part of its annual report and any other outreach method utilized by the council specific to public water systems or other critical infrastructure systems. Sounds great.
So I just would love to see that in what. So I know shall is a big one. Because. I don't wanna limit the capacity of all of what they would report on necessarily.
But it's upon the secretary's request.
Yes, and that was flagged before you came to cares. Allow is a terrible word and they will never use it again. And I think the intent too was to not create a unintentional blocker to service interruption by putting it under the permit section. And so this is where this has an opportunity to repeat itself year over year in the reporting, but also the work of the council membership too, and the committees, subcommittees rather.
So 10 VSA 1672 is the cybersecurity advisory council.
1672 is the authority of the Secretary of the Agency of Natural Resources,
Oh,
which is why I didn't specify natural resources.
Got it.
And having it be a new section doesn't, and this is where the experts would be able to better.
And to get to one of your earlier points, this framing of it decouples the requirement for cybersecurity as a condition for permit.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, but also, when you couple it with permitting, you are creating, regulation for cybersecurity, which will, outgrow itself very, very, very fast. You will be in this committee updating that language every year. That was the intent.
But you feel that this language does not create that problem?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I will, well, I wanna take a little bit of time with the appreciative rewrite to see, but this is what the Cyber Advisory Council meets on regularly. And it is, like I said, there are representation in the operators of this as well. And so this doesn't block residents from not receiving their water because cybersecurity is tied to their permit.
Yes.
So one thing is that that you did draft it as part of 1675, which is the permits conditions. And I think, I'm not gonna speak for you, but I think I just heard you say you prefer it, Secretary Riley, to be in the sort of duties of the secretary instead of in the permitting section, just so it doesn't create some ties permitting.
Yeah, it's a new subsection in that language. It's not a permit condition. And it is part of what would be necessary for them to operate. It's not a permanent condition, it's not a permanent requirement, it wouldn't prevent service of water. But it is part of the conditions for operation.
So that, I think this is where, when I have my technology hat on, I want to respectfully disagree with that, because the permitting is irrelevant of cybersecurity. So we could be running into cybersecurity, this is where our job is to protect all of you so that you don't know how bad it really is or could be. And when you create the authority or the responsibility under the secretary's authority, it is creating internal cross-agency collaboration as a requirement, but it also creates a level of responsibility of cybersecurity in the work that the Agency of Natural Resources is doing specifically for water operators as a critical infrastructure area. There are cyber risks all the way around. When you look at calling out smart metering specifically, and independently of all of the cyber risks that could exist across that sector, the technology is not touching the OT, it's not touching the operating environment, and that's not what it is meant to do. So the meter itself, like I said, the vibrations piece is really important to look at what it's listening for, is flow and vibrations.
Which, by the way, is fascinating. I did not, like, just from a physics perspective, like, oh gosh, and it's working.
Yeah.
So cool.
And what sound, yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
It's amazing. Senator Hurdy.
I'm just wondering, I'm just looking at the statutes right now to see that. Cause this is, if we put it in 1672, that's the authority of the secretary as related to public water supplies. Does that not make sense, Michael, to put it there, or?
I'm looking.
We do have an expert from A&R who can kind of speak to the audience that you have with water operators. If that helps in this, is that I believe you're the high 90+% range of water operators being municipal waters.
I think it's fine, then put in 67. Clean time six. Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize. Was otherwise engaged with, what is the question?
I said, I think it's fine to include it in 10 VSA 1672, the authority of the Agency of Natural Resources.
Okay. And you're comfortable with that? Okay.
I'm looking at A&R.
Okay.
I'm yes comfortable with that when it comes to the cyber advisory council, because we would be prepared to support.
Okay. Would you mind just introducing yourself briefly for the record, and if you would like to comment on that at all?
For the record, Brian Redmond, the director for the Drinking Water and Groundwater Protection Division, Secretary Riley, he's not talked about this on Friday, and I do think that originally it come over in the rulemaking section, 1672B, and I think a new subsection under 1672, given the aspirational nature, we don't intend to put these requirements in the rule for all the reasons the secretary described. So I think that makes sense to me. I'm glad you're here to talk about it. But I think that was.
Okay, anything else that you want to point out from your recommended language?
The only other thing I want to say is this same section, after I get a chance to read, the recommended changes of my changes.
Yeah, yeah.
Is, this is language that I would look to see repeated across the other sectors that are in there, so that we truly do look at the repeatability piece. I mean, we had an opportunity to talk through that where 2016 was the last law change for public service department when it came to electrical and gas utilities using smart metering. And so the language was very, very different. The intent of that language versus the use versus the authority even of that language is vastly different. And so when we look at operating for the same resources and the same residents, the way that this language is drafted, my hope would be it would be repeatable in other secretary authorities so that we do create some heightened awareness and that the Cyber Advisory Council's work becomes more consistent across sectors around cyber preparedness for real estate.
Interesting. Okay.
There's also, I do want to just share too, and this is not something that the committee is gonna want to take up now, but it is something that you're gonna want to hear about as we continue on is there is Homeland Security grant funding that is, we call it SSCGP, State Local Cyber Grant Program. The state of Vermont is going into our second year, and it is actually targeting this to be of use for municipalities, specifically to the work that they're doing across the critical infrastructure area. So when we talk about the resource they needed to do assessments, to do reviews, to influence the data that goes into the report, but also allow municipalities to have levels of cyber preparedness for water systems, for electric systems, which also municipalities are running for the use of that at other critical infrastructure sectors like hospitals or schools. That work is really important, and this opens up the door for that grant funding to be used more broadly across the state for municipalities too. So that it doesn't become a big cost burden for taxpayers.
So to your point about this language being replicated in other areas, the bill does water, but also electric meters. And so are you suggesting putting the same language in Title 30 about for the Secretary of the Department of Public Service?
So the language that you have listed in the bill here doesn't align to what 1672 would do for the Secretary of Agency of Natural Resources Authority. So this would be, that's something separate. So I would just want to go back and revisit that for 30 VSA 2811.
Oh, to see whether it makes sense there?
Right.
So you're not recommending it at this point, but.
I'm not recommending it for 2811 necessarily, but I do want to go back to look at where in that authority, if we can reuse likely the redrafted language, but the guidance, the cybersecurity guidance language in working with the council so that the sector is represented consistently across different sectors.
Okay. I'm confused.
Well, so what I am hearing you say is that you may come back with yet another set of suggested language, or, I mean, that's one possibility. Another possibility is that we ask the House to fix that, but,
I love that idea. That's really wonderful.
okay.
Yeah, because I think it might be more complicated there because of the federal cybersecurity requirements for electric and gas utilities. And the interaction with the PUC. I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna be more complicated, and we wanted to get this bill out this week.
I really support your plan, and really my thought is that just this language that would be going into 1672 is written in a way that's repeatable when
Necessary.
when ready, yes.
Okay.
And so that's all, is the repeatability thing is and allows consistency. Interesting. Can I have this?
Sure. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
In your suggested edits they said, that Senator Hardy sent me, you changed the term electric company to utility distribution service organization, which is much broader